Welcome back to Axis Anime. My name is Henshin Ikeda. Today I'll be doing a walkthrough review of Majestic Prince Episode 7. Now, if you remember from last episode, we find out Team Doberman has been called back to the front lines. I know we were just recently introduced to these characters and this team, and they're being called back to the front lines. Why? They're really good characters, and we know nothing about them. At least nothing significant anyways. Now moving on past that, we do find out Team Rabbits has been put into a really awkward position. They're now graduating from the academy kind of fast. I mean, not traditionally. They're just being spearheaded right past graduation, and now they're joining the GDF right away. So Team Rabbits is now officially part of the GDF army. Wow, who did not see that coming? And again, that's where the episode ends, and all my final thought and rating at the end of the clip, so stay tuned. But let's dive right on in. So we open up this episode with the Woolgru. Yes, the enemies, or in this case, the villains of the anime series. So we open up this episode with the Woolgru, and it looks like they're council members of the Woolgru, and they're talking to their king known as Garuki. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Although in this episode they really didn't say their king's name, Garuki. I had to look that up on my own. But anyways, this king by the name of Garuki seems a little incompetent and muscular. Not a good mix in my opinion, but I digress. Moving on past that, we're introduced to another character, and his name is Dalgina. Now this is a man, not a woman. His name is really hard to pronounce in my opinion, at least for me. Anyways, this new character, his name is Dalgina, and he's part of the council, and he's trying to give this king advice on what to do next, and he decides to tell the king, well, let's just strike them now while the iron's hot. I'm like, you know, Team Rabbits has had a couple good victories in my opinion, and then Dalgina basically tells the king, well, let's strike, you know, the rest of the GDF while we can. Now is the perfect time, the perfect opportunity, let's do it. And the king approves it right away, and I'm like, really? You're just going to say yes, without thinking, just yes. Obviously, you're the king, let's just say yes. Yes. So the king says yes to one of his subordinates, which is part of the council, named as Dalgina, and I guess that's what they're going to do next. They're going to strike the GDF army, which sounds a little unconventional in my opinion, very unconventional, because I would not have said okay to that kind of plan without hearing it out. Now apparently some of the other members of the council are a little skeptical, and why wouldn't they be? I mean, this was a stupid idea. Why would you strike the GDF army after they've just upgraded their Team Rabbits to full-time officers in the GDF army? I mean, unless you've got a mole in the GDF army, something just doesn't feel right. Now moving on past that, we are taken to a little cutscene with a new character, which we've seen him once before in this anime series, and we finally get a little more closure on who the hell he is. His name is Gerard Plaguza, depending on how you want to pronounce his name. Now in the subtitles, his name is Gerard, J-I-R-T, J-I-A-R-T. Now within the actual, I guess, anime that you can find online and other websites, it's spelled with a T, not like not an R, I guess, but I'm gonna call him Gerard, depending on how you want to take it, you know, whatever. But anyways, moving on past that, we're introduced to this new character. Like, this is the official introduction of this new character, because we've only seen him before. We know shit about him. Now his name is Gerard, and he is the prince. I'm like, oh shit, one of these Lone Star characters. Yes, Gerard is a prince, and he's being seen fishing in the middle of nowhere, unconventionally, with a spear, and he spearheads a giant fish. Now, what does that say about this character? A little cocky, a little arrogant, I don't know. I can't wait to find out more about him, but it does get worse. Yeah, this character, in my opinion, he gets a little worse after we see this little cutscene. I mean, he looks like Athrin Zala from Gundam Seed, which is a good thing, but he has silver hair, of course. And I like his look. He looks pretty cool, in my opinion. Now, a little more closure on who he is. I mean, yes, he's a prince. His name is Gerard Pelaguza. Well, he's the king's brother. He's not like brothers, like per se. You know, he's the king's brother. Like, at first I thought, well, are they father and son? Because he said he was a prince. At least he was addressed as a prince. What's the connection? And I'm like, wait a minute, so you're brothers with the king. Well, that's obvious, you know, royalty and whatnot, but I'm sorry, I don't see it. I see the wavy hair, you know, the silver color. That's it. I'm sorry. But anyways, I digress. Again, okay, Gerard Geralt, depending on how you want to call his name. He is the king's brother. Yeah. And it gets a little weird. After we find out who he actually is, he ends up meeting one of his brother's maidens, if that makes any sense. So his brother, the king, has a maid, and his brother gives Gerard his maid, and Jared rapes her. Literally, he rapes her. And I'm like, what the fuck? Right off the bat. This character, which could have been a good villain, no, this is like something from Berserk. I swear to God. So Gerard basically rapes one of his brother's maidens, or maids in this case, and obviously it was censored out, thank God, or they didn't even do it, but he raped her, and it was very disgusting, very direct. I'm like, whoa. I'm sorry, did I just see that? I think I did. It's just fucking messed up. And again, it looks like something from Berserk. But sorry, I digress. Moving on past that, we were introduced to another character, and her name is Ratel. Now, at the beginning of the episode, we see Ratel in the council talking to the king. And again, now we're formally introduced to her a second time in this episode. Again, her name is Ratel. Good name. She's an amazing character. She looks beautiful in a gothic type sense. You know, she likes to wear dark colors. But moving on past that, Ratel meets up with the prince, and they start scheming. Now, Ratel knows that Gerard, which is the prince, raped one of the princess. I should say, she knows the prince raped his brother. So I'm like, wait a minute. So Ratel knows this prince raped his brother's maiden. Sorry, I know I'm like slowly talking. I'm still trying to comprehend. This guy raped his brother's maid. Anyways, Ratel knows all about it, which is kind of weird. Did she set something up like that? Probably, I don't know. But anyways, Ratel is being seen scheming with this prince in an unknown room in, I guess, their colony or planet or whatnot. And they're scheming in a room. And it looks like Ratel's attempting to influence this prince in some weird way. Maybe a possible coup. We really don't know, but it's going somewhere. Hey, it's going somewhere. And moving on past that, we are taken to a little cutscene with the GDF. Yeah, the GDF army's holding a public conference, which is something big apparently, because the Commander-in-Chief Zorag, he is there in present. He's there among the guys that are like on the stand, if that makes any sense. Like just a few, looks like they're officers, high-ranking officers, and they're having a public conference on the pending battle that's going to be happening. And apparently, again, the Commander-in-Chief Zorag, he is spearheading this discussion, and he's going over the history of the GDF and what they're going to be doing next. I'm like, oh, okay, this is nice, but where's it going? So moving on past that, we find out during this discussion, the Vice Chief of Staff appears, and he discusses their strategy like a dumbass. It's being broadcasted on the news everywhere. The enemy could be watching it right now, and you decide to tell the whole world what your strategy is. So basically telling the enemy, hey, this is what we're going to be doing. You might want to prepare yourself. What? There goes your secret attack. Now moving on past that, we find out what the real plan is with the Vice Chief of Staff. Although you know damn well that Lieutenant Amin was the one that came up with it, and this dumbass is just taking the credit. But anyways, I digress. So the plan is to destroy Raganza. That is the plan, and Raganza is basically a base in the front lines. So it's the enemy base, and it's in the front lines, and it's a major player of by major player I mean it's a main strategy point within this war. So if they take it out, it's gonna be a huge victory. So okay, that's a good plan to destroy Raganza. Makes sense, but what's the first step? And as soon as he started talking about the first step, I'm like, this is something from a sci-fi movie, I swear to God. So they're going to attack the enemy with a laser-based system. Okay, I'll bite. What next? Then he's going to set up a minefield to slow the enemy down. Okay, so where have I heard this before? Oh, The Last Starfighter! Oh, you fuckers, you ripped them off. I'm sorry, that's just me. Now, after the minefield has been set, so it'll slow down the enemy, they're going to have... Now, I thought this was kind of typical. They're going to set up mobile troops like along the minefield, and they're going to shoot railguns in unison at the enemy. And then after that, they're going to go into their normal battle mode and whatnot and attempt to take out the enemy base. Again, this is from The Last Starfighter. A classic, by the way, and I loved it, but it's from The Last Starfighter. Kind of. Now, moving on past that, what is this battle going to be called? The Battle of Sears. Probably throughout that whole description I just gave you, that was the best thing. Like the end of that little description, the Battle of Sears, was the only thing that I like to remember from it. Other than that, come on, this is a ripoff from so many different anime series, it's not even funny. Now, moving on past that, we are taking to a little cutscene with Team Rabbits. Now, Team Rabbits is going to be on standby. Now, they're going to be joining the battle, but right now they're on standby, and they're being sent to the Star Rose. And I thought, okay, this is kind of interesting. And we were introduced to another character, a little girl, and I thought that was definitely worth mentioning, but we don't really get to see a lot of her in this episode, so I'm just going to push her to the side. Now, we do find out Team Rabbits gets their own room. Each character gets their own room. And they're not used to it, so each one of the characters keep following each other into each other's room, and I thought that was definitely worth mentioning. Now, we are taking to a little cutscene with Izuru. Now, Izuru is fitting in differently among his members, not just of Team Rabbit's group, but of his Pick group members. Now, remember, each different character among the Team Rabbits, I should say, each different Team Rabbits member has their own Pick crew. And apparently Izuru's Pick crew is very family-oriented, and they accept him so good that it makes him weirded out. I'm like, dude, if they're like family, it doesn't get any better than this. They're going to treat you the best that they can. And apparently while they're on the Star Rose, his Pick crew sticks up for him in one occasion where he's using the copier to copy his manga pictures. Definitely worth mentioning. I'm like, oh, this is interesting. But again, we know nothing about his Pick crew technically, so I'm going to move on past that. Eventually, the Goldenia leaves port and takes Team Rabbits with them, and they're heading off to the Battle of Sears. I know, small little cutscenes throughout the Star Rose was nice for the time being, but it's time for the battle at hand. I think so, right? Now, moving on past that, we find out... You sitting for this? Ready? Ready? Yeah, the Woolgrew, they're ready, and they're in force, and they're about to attack. Yeah, I shit you not, they're about to attack the GDF army. Who did not see this coming? Come on, you have everything recorded and sent on the news networks, and you do a live discussion on your strategy. Who's not going to pick that up? Oh yeah, the Woolgrew, that's who. Dumbasses. Anyways, the Woolgrew are now ready, they're up in force, and they're about to attack the GDF out of nowhere. Now, the Prince, although he has joined the battle per se, because of his brother being the king and all, and he promised his brother, I guess, he'd join the battle, isn't participating. I'm like, what? So the Prince, this badass, the guy that we saw raping this maid, is not going to participate in the battle. He's waiting to see the outcome of the battle, and he's waiting for this girl known as Tiara to show up. I'm like, okay, who the hell is Tiara? We really don't know. But moving on past that, toward the end of the episode, we find that the Woolgrew are the first to attack. And yeah, there's a catch here. Yeah, the Vice Chief of Staff, he doesn't order a retreat. He orders an attack. He's like, you know what? We've already lost about 70%. I believe it was 70% of their force. He's like, it's too late to turn around. Let's attack. And that's where the episode ends. As for final thoughts, well, first of all, the Prince, that's part of the Woolgrew Empire, who is he waiting for? He said Tiara, but who is this woman known as Tiara? We really don't know. And what is he scheming with Ratilla, which is that woman that is also part of the council? We really don't know. And no, that ends it for my final thoughts. Nothing too much there. As per my rating, 2.5 out of 5. I wasn't thrilled with this episode because it was just getting good at the end. So, final rating, 2.5 out of 5. And that ends it for my walkthrough and review of Majestic Prince Episode 7. So definitely comment down below, let me know, thumbs up, thumbs down, definitely subscribe, check me out on Twitter, and follow me if you like. Let me know what you thought of this episode, and let me know what you think's going to happen in the next episode coming out. I can't wait, it's going to be a huge build-up, the battle starting. It's just getting good. But again, guys, that ends it for now, and I gotta hit the bricks, and I gotta go. And before I go, I gotta say it, and I always say it. You can't stop the access, but you can watch the feed. I'll see you later, guys.